Once upon a time, in the bustling school hostel, a 17-year-old Mary had always been an ordinary girl, pretty and intelligent, but her sleeping soundtracks almost ruined everything. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel Happy End African Folktales Stories. Living in the bustling school hostel, Mary shared a room with two other girls, Amara and Zenard, both friendly and easygoing. These three friends quickly bonded, exchanging stories about their hometowns, family quirks, and embarrassing moments. However, there was one thing about Mary that wasn't ordinary, something she couldn't control. She talks in her sleep. Not just random murmurs or soft whispers, no, Mary's subconscious had a whole separate career as an unfiltered, wildly unpredictable night performer. Her words were often so outrageous that her roommates were left in fits of laughter. The first encounter happened during their third week in the hostel. The room was quiet, except for the faint hum of crickets outside. Amara and Zenard were scrolling through their phones and chatting with their friends on social media when suddenly, Mary mumbled, "Oh yes, right there, that's the spot," followed by a giggle. Amara nearly choked on her water, and Zenard clutched her pillow, trying not to burst out laughing. They exchanged wide-eyed glances, stifling their amusement until morning. When Mary woke up, she was met with mischievous grins. "Did you sleep well, Mary?" Amara teased, unable to hide her smirk. Confused, Mary nodded, until Zenard added, "Because you seemed to be having quite an adventure last night." It didn't take long for Mary to realize what had happened. Her face turned crimson. "Oh no, not again," she muttered, burying her head under her blanket. She'd experienced sleep-talking before, but never like this. It was embarrassing beyond words, and from that day on, Mary dreaded bedtime. Mary hoped it was a one-time thing, but her nocturnal outbursts continued. Each night brought new phrases, some funny, some downright scandalous. One evening, just as Zenard and Amara were settling into bed, Mary, deep in slumber, suddenly blurted, "Oh yeah, my king, hit it right there." Amara and Zenard gasped, their shock melting into uncontrollable laughter. "You should really charge for these late-night performances," Amara wheezed, wiping tears from her eyes. It didn't take long for word to spread around the hostel. Mary became known as the sleep talker, much to her horror. Girls from other rooms even started sneaking by their door at night, hoping to catch one of her infamous outbursts. Some nights, they even placed light bets on what she might say next. Mary was well known for her beauty and sparkling skin. Many guys on campus had always wished to make her their girlfriend. She is such a brilliant girl that any man would be proud of. One afternoon, after a short class with her mates, Mary dozed off right in her seat. Just 5 minutes later, she began her usual episode. The whole class burst into laughter as she suddenly woke up. When she realized what was going on, she was overwhelmed with shame and embarrassment. Everyone was laughing except her two friends, Amara and Zenard, who were seated on either side of her. Mary's sleep-talking soundtrack now made more guys to be interested in her, hoping she would be just as lively in the other room. Rumors spread, and even the cafeteria ladies got wind of her condition. One morning, as Mary approached the breakfast counter, the cook smirked. "Here you go, sweetheart. Extra eggs for our favorite midnight entertainer." Mary groaned, covering her face as Amara and Zenard howled with laughter behind her. At this point Mary was so desperate to put an end to the whole sleeping madness, Mary tried everything. She slept with headphones on, hoping music would suppress her own voice. It didn't work. She even tried staying up late, exhausting herself to the point where she thought she'd be too tired to talk when she dozed off. But fatigue only made her outbursts more dramatic. One night, after pulling an all-nighter for an exam, she passed out on her bed at 5 a.m. Barely 2 hours later, she sat up in her sleep and announced loudly, "Oh yes, my king, I like it." The entire floor erupted in laughter. Even their dormitory supervisor, Mrs. Bernard, stopped by to investigate. "Mary, are you possessed?" she asked, shaking her head. Mary wished the ground would just open and swallow her. Despite the embarrassment, Amara and Zenard remained supportive. They never mocked her harshly, always teasing in good fun. "Hey, at least you're entertaining us big time with your melodies soundtracks," Amara joked one morning, handing Mary a cup of coffee. Mary sighed. I wish I could just shut up in my sleep. The next day, Mary started researching sleep disorders, desperate for answers. She read about stress-induced sleep talking, vivid dreams, and even psychological triggers. But nothing seemed to fit. She wasn't overly stressed, and her dreams were rarely as wild as her words suggested. One evening, after another embarrassing night, Zenard sat beside her. Maybe you're holding something back during the day, you know? Like your subconscious is trying to tell you something. Mary frowned. I doubt it. I'm just a normal girl with a very abnormal sleep habit. Determined to understand her condition, Mary began keeping a dream journal beside her bedside. Every morning, she jotted down whatever she could remember, hoping to find a pattern. Surprisingly, her dreams were mundane, walking through hallways, attending classes, or reading books with other students. All these were some random dreams Mary encountered lately. None of them explained the spicy phrases escaping her mouth at night. One day, Amara suggested recording Mary's sleep. Maybe hearing it will help you figure it out. Reluctantly, Mary agreed. That night, they set up Amara's phone to capture any midnight ramblings. The next morning, they listened together. The recording started with soft breathing, then a sudden outburst. My captain. Oh yeah. Your treasure map is upside down. But I like it that way. Amara and Zenard burst into laughter, while Mary groaned, covering her face. But as they listened further, Mary noticed something odd. Her tone wasn't just playful, it sounded almost like she was acting, performing a role in some strange, subconscious movie. What if these aren't just random words? Mary wondered aloud. What if it's connected to something I've buried deep inside? Intrigued by her theory, Mary dug deeper into her past. She recalled a childhood memory of participating in a school play during her primary school days. She had loved acting, creating characters, and speaking lines with dramatic flair. But after a particularly embarrassing performance where she forgot her lines, she had sworn off acting forever. Could her sleep-talking be a suppressed part of her love for performing and acting? Excited by the revelation, Mary decided to face her fear. She signed up for an open mic event on campus, planning to perform a comedic monologue about herself, her sleep-talking escapades, and the chaos they caused. When the night arrived, Mary stood nervously on stage, the spotlight warm against her face. She took a deep breath, placed the microphone a bit far from her lips as she began. The crowd erupted in laughter as she recounted her ridiculous sleep phrases, even mimicking her own sleepy voice. To her surprise, she felt alive, confident, and free. After her performance, her two friends rushed to the stage and hugged her so firmly. Mary became somewhat of a campus celebrity, not for her sleep-talking, but for her courage and humor. Students approached her with laughter and admiration, sharing their own embarrassing stories. Back at the hostel, Mary no longer feared bedtime. She embraced her quirks, even joking with Amara and Zenard about what her next performance would be. Maybe tonight I'll give a weather report, she teased, climbing into bed. Her sleep-talking didn't stop, but it no longer embarrassed her. Instead, it became a part of who she was, a reminder that sometimes, the things we're most ashamed of can lead to the greatest self-discovery. As she drifted off to sleep, her last conscious thought was, I hope tonight's episode is a good one. And somewhere in the dark, a faint voice mumbled, I can't wait to listen to those sweet lyrics, said Amara, and Zenard burst into laughter. Mary's sleep-talking had already caused chaos, but one fateful night, it created something far worse, a romantic disaster. One evening, during a late-night chat, Zenard casually mentioned that a handsome guy named Damelaire from their class had a crush on Mary. Mary laughed it off. Please, I don't even know the guy properly. But later that night, in her sleep, she suddenly whispered, Damelaire, you and I, in a world with no exams, just love. The next morning, Amara and Zenard nearly collapsed from laughter. But the worst part, Damelaire somehow found out afterwards. The whole class teased her mercilessly, and Mary couldn't look at Damelaire without turning red. When he finally approached her, rubbing the back of his neck shyly, he said, So, about what you said in your sleep. Mary wanted to disappear into thin air. Mary wasn't just a sleep talker, she was a sleep prophet and performer. The students, always looking for something exciting, started treating Mary like some mystical oracle. Even their classmates would jokingly ask, "Mary, any visions about tomorrow's test?" Though she laughed it off, Mary secretly started wondering, was there really something unusual about her subconscious? As Mary's reputation grew, things in the hostel took a turn for the absurd. Girls from other rooms, and even some from different hostel blocks, started sneaking into the hallway at night, pressing their ears against Mary's door to catch her latest performance. Everyone seemed to enjoy Mary's sleep-talking, especially the spicy phrases she unleashed. Amara and Zenard, being the mischievous friends they were, started charging for entry fees. 100 naira per person, Amara whispered to a group of giggling girls one night. Premium subscribers get first-row access. Please hold on a second. Before I continue, kindly like and subscribe to my channel, Happy End African Folktales Stories. This will help and motivate me to write more interesting stories like this one. Take 5 seconds to leave a comment below. Now, let's continue with the story. 100 naira per person, Amara whispered to a group of giggling girls one night. Premium subscribers get first-row access. Mary, of course, had no clue this was happening until one night when she woke up to find 10 girls squeezed into their small room, holding their laughter as they stared at her. "What the heck is going on?" she shrieked, making everyone scramble out like rats. From that day on, Mary banned all unauthorized listeners. But the legend of her midnight concerts only grew stronger. The next day, Amara, seated very close to Mary, suggested they take this talent to the next level. Mary glanced at her. "How do you mean?" "Let's host a stand-up comedy show where people can pay for entrance tickets to the venue. I'm sure we'll make some good money from it." Zenard quickly nodded in agreement. One evening, desperate for an actual solution, Mary went to see the school counselor. The elderly woman, Mrs. Adesoa, listened carefully before asking, "Have you ever suppressed a dream, a passion, or something you truly loved?" Mary hesitated. "Well, I used to love acting. But I gave up after embarrassing myself on stage." The counselor smiled. "Perhaps your subconscious is trying to tell you something." That night, Mary lay in her bed, deep in thought. Maybe her sleep-talking wasn't a curse. Maybe it was a sign. Maybe it was time to embrace her hidden talent. "This is close to what my friends suggested the other day," Mary thought to herself. Feeling encouraged by the counselor, Mary took a bold step. She signed up for a school talent show. She would perform a comedy skit about her sleep-talking adventures. At first, she panicked. "What if I forget my lines?" she asked Amara. Zenard grinned. "Then sleep-talk your way through it." That evening, everyone crowded into the school hall to witness Mary's performance. The crowd was massive and unimaginable. Even students from other schools were invited. When the night arrived, Mary stepped onto the brightly lit stage, her heart pounding. She grabbed the microphone and took a deep breath. "Hi, everyone. My name is Mary, and at night, I turn into a radio station." The crowd burst into laughter. As she recounted her midnight outbursts, mimicked Zenard and Amara's reactions, and even imitated the dormitory supervisor's horror, the audience roared with laughter. When she finished, the entire hall stood up, clapping and cheering. Mary beamed. For the second time in her life, she wasn't embarrassed by her sleep-talking. She owned it. Mary didn't stop sleep-talking, but she no longer felt ashamed of it. She embraced her gift, joined the school's drama club, and even won Best Comedic Performer in a campus event. And as she lay in bed that night, about to drift off, Amara and Zenard teased. "So, what's tonight's show about?" Mary smirked. "Stay tuned. It's a surprise." As sleep took over, her subconscious whispered, "The queen shall have extra spaghetti, and all shall bow before her." Zenard and Amara burst into uncontrollable laughter. Some things never change. But sometimes, they turn into something beautiful. 10 lessons to learn from this story. 1. Embrace your uniqueness. Mary initially saw her sleep-talking as a flaw, something to be ashamed of, but in the end, she realized it was a part of her identity. Instead of running from it, she turned it into something positive. This teaches us that our so-called imperfections can actually be our greatest strengths if we learn to embrace them. 2. True friends support you. Amara and Zenard never abandoned Mary despite the teasing from others. Instead, they stood by her, offering laughter and encouragement rather than ridicule. This highlights the importance of surrounding yourself with people who lift you up rather than tear you down. Watch out for the next episode. Please subscribe now so you don't miss it.